Back in the late 70s and into the 80s, all of this mangled, garbled noise all by itself could be euphoric to anybody under the age of 20. Do any of you remember how cantankerous those old change machines could be if your dollar bill was heavily worn or badly crinkled? If it were held together with Scotch tape, then don't even try it. Just track down the arcade attendant to get your 4 quarters from him. I have some fantastic memories of going to the arcade when I was growing up. And I didn't get to go often, but it was something that was just incredibly fun that I really enjoyed doing. Now, the arcade that I loved opened in 1977, and I walked into this place with my mother. I was only 7 years old in late 77, probably August or September, and I had never seen that many arcade games before in my life. I'd only seen a couple at the 7-Eleven that was around the corner from my dad's office that I would get to go into every once in a while. So I was immediately taken aback by these 2 rows of arcade games that were in this glorious place I had just discovered. And the name of that arcade was Aladdin's Castle. And in this video, I'm going to share what I would typically do when I found out that Mom was going to be going to the mall sometime very soon, and what I would do to try to accumulate some quarters between when I found out and when we got to the mall. You know, one more thing about the change machine from the old days was that once or twice a year maybe, where I would walk into that place with a $5 bill in my pocket. You know, it was maybe a part of a Christmas present from my grandmother. They usually gave me my brother $20 each, which was a lot of money back then. My birthday, I got some birthday money from a relative or something, but anyway, put that $5 bill in there. I don't know what it was about those machines back then, those change machines, but it didn't tinkle down like tick, 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 tick. It was like all 20 coins, smash, just came down at once. And I can remember my little hands just going in there, that little tray, and scooping out all 20 of those quarters and just looking at them and thinking, man, I may run out of time before I can spend all this in here. It was really cool. But like I say, it didn't happen very often. But do y'all remember anything like that? Did it feel that way to you as well? Let me know in the comments. If I happened to overhear my mother say that she had to go to the mall on Saturday, my young little mind immediately sprang into action. This wasn't something that happened very often in our house. We lived way out of town, and since my parents worked in town, they would typically handle errands like the mall during the week, which left no chance for me to get into that glorious place I loved called Aladdin's Castle. From that moment, as far as I was concerned, any piece of change lying out in the open, even a penny, was fair game. I would try to be sneaky though and not be too obvious in my current quest for loose change. When nobody was in the den, I immediately went for the couch and flung off the cushions and started digging, hoping to find anything. And I was often successful and would find a few nickels or dimes. Every once in a while, even a whole quarter might be buried under there. The next piece of furniture to come under my assault was my old man's lazy boy recliner. I would grab it and drag it off the indentions it had pressed into the carpeting on the floor. Yes, there would always be something shiny under there. But I wasn't finished with that old beast yet, no sir. I would then become much more aggressive with the old chair by grabbing the headrest from behind while tilting it forward a few inches off the carpet and then shaking it violently to the left and right to see what might jingle inside and fall out onto the floor. Oh yeah, mission accomplished, as 3 or 4 more coins come tumbling out from the innards of the old recliner. A good haul from the den would be 50 cents to $1, and anything hitting $1.50 was like finding a buried treasure in the backyard. Let me ask y'all something. Did your dad have like a tray in the bedroom, your parents' bedroom, where he would, just dump the contents of his pockets out every day? If he had a pocket knife, his wallet, any loose change. My dad had this little square tray. I think it was something they had gotten on. They went on a trip somewhere. It was something they picked up as a souvenir or something. Anyway, he would always dump his stuff in that thing. and that was my next target. Sad to say. Now I wasn't a total little total little bastard. I didn't just try to take everything. I would just try to sneak out, just just a little, a nickel, a dime, maybe 2 dimes, maybe 25 cents, maybe 50 cents, depending on how big the pile was. Hoping he wouldn't notice also. Next was my mom's purse. And again, I had to be very careful about this one because this took a little bit of time. You couldn't just be in and out in a few seconds. Because I wasn't just looking in her wallet, and she had the wallet that had her checkbook and all the credit cards and all that junk, and you had the little pouch that you popped open to hold a few coins. Of course, I would look in there, and if there was a lot in there, I might grab just a little bit. But the secret compartment, I called it, of the pocketbook was if you had time to literally dump the whole thing out, because she never cleaned the thing out worth of crap. There would always be some money. You usually find something. Maybe you would just a dime, or there'd always be a piece of loose change or two that was buried inside the pocketbook that didn't make it into her little change thing, or fell out or something. So, but like I say, you had to be really careful because she could walk in and you'd be busted. But it would usually get me something. Then I would travel out to the garage to check my parents' vehicles to see if I could find anything. Remember, every nickel and dime counts when you start adding everything up. But I would check just on the surface, but I would also check under the driver's seats on both vehicles to see if something had slid out and fell underneath there. It usually didn't get a lot, but sometimes you might get lucky, especially on my dad's truck. I remember one time he had a single cab pickup truck. It had a bench seat, so it was easy to check behind there to see if something had slipped down, since he obviously had change in his pockets. Maybe something slipped down and fell behind there, so it never hurt to check the cars also. Now remember what I said earlier about trying to be sneaky about this? I didn't want them to know. My parents, they never forbid me from playing video games, but they never really liked me dropping quarters into the machines. They were never fans of it. Like I said, they would still give me a little bit of money sometimes, but they never really cared for it. Now, when I talked about getting caught, that was no joke. I mean, if you caught them in the wrong mood, and you were rifling through their stuff, ooh, especially my dad, he had a wide selection of leather belts, and they were all good and wide. And so anytime you were trying to be sneaky, you were, when you were in the middle of it, boy, you're only like 9 years old. Oh, your heart's racing. You're just trying to, get whatever you can and get out. But I was also had a good strategy. On Friday nights, my parents loved the show Dallas, and I would watch it too. I mean, I would always watch the Dukes of Hazzard. It came on first, but sometimes I would sit and watch Dallas with them also. But they were just diehards. I mean, my old man had the shirt that said "Who Shot JR?" The yellow shirts that had "Who Shot JR?" My dad had one of those. But I knew if I waited until things were kind of tense on the show, and then and the commercial was over and it came back, because they might run to the bathroom or something, while the commercial's on, and they come back in there and they're seated and they're ready to see, what kind of mean stuff J.R. Ewing's going to do next. Then I could sneak back to their bedroom, and it was relatively safe. Now, when I got up in my teens, I was like every other kid. I would pick up jobs cutting grass. Summertime, do odd jobs around to pick up some extra money I could spend. I even cleaned horse crap out of stables a few times when I was a young teenager, just to make some extra money. Now, when I got a little older, when I got up into middle school and even into high school, a lot of times I would also save my lunch money. I mean, I might spend half of it and save the other half, or maybe have a big breakfast that morning and just don't eat anything for lunch, or make a couple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, toss them in my book bag, don't say anything. My parents give me my mom gives me my lunch money, and I just hang on to it. Now, what kind of crazy stuff did you do to scrape up some extra change? If you missed my past video, the birth of a video game genre, check out the Scramble video. You'll learn how a genre was born. If you love old video game sounds, some of the best sounds ever, check out the other video. It's got some of the best sounds ever from the good old days. Hey, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share. Bye!